Hello there, and welcome. We are about to explore one of the biggest, most profound questions we can ever ask. For a lot of people, especially as they get closer to the end of life and really start thinking about what's next, the old stories just don't quite fit anymore. They can feel, well, a little small. So think of this explainer as a tool, as a gentle guide to a more expansive, more hopeful, and really a more love-centered way of looking at the journey ahead. So let's just dive right in. What happens after we die? That's it, right? That is the ultimate human question. And whenever you're heading into unknown territory, you need a good map. But what if the map you were handed only shows two possible destinations? And what if your heart, your gut, tells you that the landscape is just so much bigger and more complex than that? So here's our plan for this journey together. First, we're going to talk about this whole question of maps. Then, we'll look at the limits of that familiar story most of us know. After that, we'll lay out the foundations for a much bigger map. We'll walk through the journey it describes, see how it changes how we live right now. And finally, we'll land on what turns out to be the most important landmark of all, love. Right. So, a question of maps. A lot of us were given a pretty simple story about what happens next. A map with really clear, sharp lines drawn on it. But for many, over time, that map just starts to feel too small. It's like it can't quite hold all the complexity, the nuance, and that deep sense of mercy we feel has to be woven into the fabric of existence. So let's talk about what we'll call the small map. It's a really powerful story, and before we dive into its limits, it's actually really important to honor the essential truths that it gets absolutely right. The small map is a story millions of us know by heart. It goes like this. You live this one life, and then, based on what you did or what you believed, you're sent to one of two places, heaven or hell. And that's it. The decision is final, it's forever, it's kind of like a pass-fail exam for your entire existence. But here's the thing. There's a reason this map has lasted so long. It holds on to two incredibly profound ideas that feel true deep down in our bones. First, that our awareness, the us that is us, doesn't just get switched off. And second, that how we live our lives, the choices we make, they actually have real, lasting consequences. Those are some pretty solid foundations to build on. And this is where things really start to open up. See, where the small map gives us just two final destinations, the bigger map suggests there are multiple layers to reality. Instead of one single final judgment, it points to this idea of ongoing learning and healing. And this is huge. Where the small map can feel like you're all on your own, the bigger one reveals that we're not alone in this at all, that there are helpers and guides involved in the process. Okay, so what are the core principles holding this bigger map together? What are the foundational ideas that let us even begin to draw a map that's this much more detailed and, well, spacious? The first big idea is that consciousness itself is the primary thing. The you that you really are, it's not your job, it's not your memories, it's not even your physical body. You are the pure awareness that is having all those experiences. And from that point of view, life stops looking like a test and starts to look a lot more like a school, a grand classroom for consciousness to learn and to grow. Second, the idea that reality isn't just one single floor. It's more like a giant skyscraper with many, many levels of experience that go way beyond what our five physical senses can pick up. Each of these different dimensions has its own unique feel, its own rules, its own nature. And this one is a real game changer. Your beliefs, your hopes, and maybe most importantly your fears, they aren't just little thoughts floating around in your head. They are actual energetic structures. And right after you pass, those internal patterns you've built directly shape the reality you perceive. This is why learning to choose love over fear isn't just some nice fluffy idea. It's incredibly practical preparation. Okay, so with those foundations in place, let's actually trace the path. According to this bigger map, what actually happens in those moments and in the stages that follow after we leave this physical life. This is such a powerful way to reframe something so familiar. The concepts of heaven and hell aren't just thrown out the window, not at all. They're just understood in a new way. They are very real, very powerful experiences, but they are not permanent addresses. They're more like temporary states, transition zones that we create from the inside out. So you can think about the journey happening in roughly three phases. First, we enter into what are called expectation fields, which are literally built out of our own beliefs. Then from there, a process of rescue and guidance can begin. And finally, we move on to these vast learning territories for healing and for growth.
So, in that first stage, if your consciousness is full of love and trust and peace, you might find yourself in a really beautiful, gentle, luminous reunion. If you're full of fear or unresolved guilt, you might project a pretty convincing scenario of judgment. The key is, it's not being done to you from the outside, it's a perfect reflection of your own inner world. And for those who die suddenly, with no framework at all, they might get stuck in a kind of confused loop, just replaying their last moments over and over.
This is where the help comes in. Guides, helpers, loved ones, they reach out to souls who are stuck in these states. But the salvation they're offering, it isn't from some angry God. It's salvation from our own self-imposed limitations, from our own fear, from the simple ignorance of not knowing that there's a door to a much bigger, more loving reality just waiting for us. It's a rescue mission born out of pure compassion.
And once you're free from those initial self-created fields, the soul moves into these incredible places that are best described as learning territories. These are environments designed for healing old wounds, for reviewing the life you just lived, not with judgment, but with incredible understanding, and for thoughtfully, consciously planning what comes next in your soul's continuing education.
Okay, so this is all fascinating stuff, right? But here's the billion-dollar question. How does having this bigger map change anything for us right here, right now? How does it actually affect the way we live our lives today and how we prepare for our own journey?
Well, here are some really grounded practical things. We can start to loosen our grip on that rigid heaven or hell idea while absolutely holding on to the core truth that love and justice and kindness really, really matter. We can start to gently notice and release our own personal patterns of fear and judgment. We can cultivate flexible, open, and kind expectations for what lies ahead. And we can start participating in this whole network of love right now, just with our intentions, for everyone, both the living and those who have already passed on.
And this is just such good advice. Hold this map, or any map for that matter, lightly. Use your own heart as a compass. Just ask yourself, does this belief I'm holding make me feel smaller and more afraid, or does it make me feel more loving, more spacious, and more responsible for the energy I'm putting out into the world? Trust that feeling of expansion. Trust love.
So when it's all said and done, after exploring all these different territories and possibilities, we finally arrive at the capital city, the absolute center point of this entire map. And this quote, this just says it all. The feeling that comes with this bigger map isn't arrogance, it's just profound relief and a sense of wonder. It's that feeling of, oh, it's bigger, more merciful, and more interesting than I was told, and I still matter. My choices still matter. And love is still the main thing. See, our importance isn't taken away. It's just placed inside a much grander and much more loving story.
And so we'll leave you with this question to carry with you. In this vast, mysterious, beautiful cosmos, with a journey ahead that is probably more incredible than we can even imagine, what if all our fear about getting it wrong has just been a distraction? And what if the simple, powerful act of choosing love is the only compass we've ever really needed?